2 months ago, I inherited my late aunt's house. It's a beautiful Victorian era inspired house in a posh neighborhood with a spacious backyard. My aunt and I used to be very close when she was alive, and I have a ton of emotions and good memories attached to this house from when my mom would visit my aunt and I'd play around in the backyard. So, moving in here as soon as the legal proceedings were done was the next logical step, and I love it here. I work from home as well, so it's actually just perfect. A few weeks ago, my friend Ashley asked me if she could use my house as the venue for her wedding. I've known Ashley since high school, and while we used to be close back then, we grew apart as adults and didn't quite keep in touch. I was quite hesitant to say yes to her since I'm not good around people, and letting her get married in my backyard would mean a dozen people in and around my house, which made me anxious even thinking about it. I'm just not a people person, and so I wished her luck and said no. Obviously, Ashley didn't take that kindly and went on to accuse me of being jealous and selfish. She said that I was stealing a dream opportunity away from her of getting married in Victorian aesthetics for free, which was funny since she expected me to give up my space and comfort for free, no less. I even suggested other places that were available for rent, but she declined, saying that my backyard was her best bet if she wanted to save money. I don't understand why she'd assume that I just let her do whatever she wanted to, even though we hadn't been close since high school. But I remained firm on my decision, and despite her bugging me multiple times a day to convince me. She alternated between requesting me to let her have the wedding in my backyard and calling me all sorts of names for being so heartless and cruel. And finally, when I realized that she wouldn't get the hint, I decided to block her everywhere so she couldn't get to me. I'd assumed that that was the end of it and she wouldn't bother me anymore. But then, a few weeks ago, one of my friends who happened to be close to Ashley texted me asking for directions to my house. I was pretty confused, and it only made sense to me when she sent me a picture of the wedding invitation that Ashley had sent out, where she'd put down my address as the venue. I was livid and decided to call up Ashley immediately. She laughed in my face, saying that now that it was done, there was nothing I could say or do to prevent it, and I just have to deal with it when the time comes. And given that her wedding was just in 2 days when I found out, there really wasn't much that I could do unless I went to the cops, which is also something I didn't want to do. But I couldn't just let it slide, so I decided that I would mess her wedding day up since she was essentially doing the same to me. She'd always known that I was a shy and introverted person and didn't like being around people, but if she had no regard for that, then I didn't need to think about her wedding or her feelings either. So the morning of her wedding, I decided to toilet paper my own house. I know this sounds petty and mean, but yeah, I did it. And I covered every single inch of my house that was visible with toilet paper. I knew that I'd have to clean it up later by myself, but it just felt really satisfying knowing that I was getting back at her for disrespecting me and my boundaries. At around 9, when the caterers and decorators showed up to start setting up the place for the wedding, they were shocked to the core and informed her. I told them that they weren't supposed to be here and said that they could leave since no wedding would be taking place here today. Within half an hour, she pulled up to my house and started screaming at me about what I'd done and started trying to pull off the toilet paper from wherever she could. But it was just all too much, and there wasn't enough time to fix the house. By then, I'd already locked her out and was chilling in the living room with headphones on. I did hear her yelling at the caterers and decorators to pack up and leave, and that the wedding wasn't going to happen today. So that was that, and they left. Then, after she was done, she decided to start banging on my door and screaming at me again about how I was just so selfish and heartless. Then she started sobbing, and that's when I started feeling a little guilty. After around 15 minutes of her cursing me out while crying, she finally left. This was all a couple of hours ago, and I don't know. I feel like I really messed up. I could have let her just have the wedding and dealt with my discomfort for one day, but I think I took things too far with this one. I'm not generally a vindictive person, but Ashley was way too disrespectful to me. So in the moment, it just felt like the sensible thing to do. This was supposed to be her most special day, and now it's ruined, all because of me, but I did tell her no several times. So AITA for TPing my own house to ruin my friend's wedding? Update 1. I decided to apologize to Ashley for doing what I did, but she wasn't having any of it. And the second I called her up, she started yelling at me before I'd even had the chance to get a word in. She actually had the nerve to threaten to take me to court for ruining her wedding, which was ridiculous, since she didn't even have a case. Neither had she paid for anything and had, in fact, gone against me in an attempt to get married on my property against my wishes. So I had more of a reason to take legal action against her than she did. I'd called her to apologize, but we ended up getting into an even worse verbal spat, and I guess I was wrong for even trying to make amends. And from what I know, she's turned into a total bridezilla as well. We have quite a few common friends, and one of them just so happened to be her cousin, who let me know that Ashley has been acting totally crazy ever since she got engaged. Apparently, not just me, but several of her other friends have also been at odds with her because of her behavior. She's been really short with her own bridesmaids and family, and that's rubbing people the wrong way. So right now, I'm not feeling too guilty about what I did. I know what I did was still pretty petty and mean, but I did try to apologize to her, and that was just met with more yelling and accusations from her end. I tried my best to apologize, but she doesn't deserve it at all, very clearly. Honestly, I'm not very surprised that she's become a bridezilla, since even when we were friends in school, she could be a bit of a control freak. She would always get really sulky and irritable whenever things wouldn't go her way, and she had this strange need to be the one controlling our lives. This was also part of the reason we grew apart as adults, since I figured that I'd rather be by myself than stick with my old friends just because they were all I had. It's been lonely, but I'm okay with that. But anyway, yeah, I guess this wedding had brought out her ugliest side, and I'm not surprised in the least that she's pissing everyone off, including her own friends and family. Her cousin herself isn't part of the wedding anymore since she'd been so annoying to deal with, and has told me about how it's a relief to finally get rid of her. I'm just hoping that Ashley doesn't try to contact me again, since I want to lead a drama-free life, and anyway, I don't think there's much to discuss at this point. What's done is done, and while I did try to make amends, she's the one who refused to accept my apology. And very honestly, that's totally fine by me. Update 2. 2 days have passed since my last update, and a few hours ago, Ashley showed up at my place. She seemed a lot more normal and a lot less crazy than the day before. She was speaking normally and apologized to me for the way she'd behaved in the past, so I was really quite taken aback by this sudden change in her behavior. I should have known that that was just all an act and it was too good to be true anyway. After a few minutes of small talk, she came to the point and said that she wanted to get married in my backyard. Once again, I explained to her that I didn't want so many people coming to my house and that being around so many people made me really nervous and anxious. So I just didn't want to deal with that at all, especially if it was to be in my own house. I'd have no choice but to be around them. I explained to her that even when I'm attending weddings, I tend to stay for the shortest amount of time and try to get home as fast as possible. She, however, refused to believe that being around people made me anxious and went on to tell me that this whole issue was all in my head and social anxiety didn't exist, which was just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, there are studies that prove it's pretty real and exists. And while I don't have a full-fledged phobia or whatever, I still find it hard to be around strangers. I tried explaining that to her again, but she just wouldn't hear it and kept trying to convince me, and even said that since I'd forced her to postpone her wedding once, I owed her this much. By then, we were speaking in circles, and it didn't make much sense to continue explaining my issue to her, since she just wasn't going to get it. I told her that my decision was final and that if she wasn't going to respect it, then she needed to leave already. Once again, she took offense at that, and that led to another fight. Ashley had always been entitled, but she was getting on my very last nerve by then. So when she kept insisting that I owed her this, since I'd ruined her day the first time around, I snapped and told her that she'd ruined it herself by being an insufferable and entitled bridezilla who didn't know how to take no for an answer. Having said that, I told her to leave or else I'd report her to the cops, and that seemed to do the job far more effectively. She left, cursing at me and saying all sorts of horrible things about me, but I didn't let any of it get under my skin anymore. She was just a drama queen, and I wasn't going to let the likes of her bother me anymore. Update 3. So Ashley decided that she was going to do exactly what she'd planned on doing the last time, and wrote me an email saying that she intended to send out the same invites. By now, I just think she's really pathetic for going to such lengths just to avoid having to pay for a venue. Of course, I wrote back saying that if she even dared to do such a thing again, I'd call the cops and report her and all her guests for trespassing, which would be quite a wedding gift for her family and in-laws. That seemed to get under her skin, and once again, she showed up at my house. But I'd had enough this time and decided to not even open the door when I saw her car pull up. She told me that I was being incredibly selfish and unreasonable, which was bold coming from her. I told her that I could say the same thing about her as well, but she wasn't ready to listen to me at all and went on talking about how it could cost me nothing to let her host a wedding in my backyard, and yet I was choosing to be unkind. I was exasperated by then and didn't even bother telling her that it would definitely cost me my peace of mind and comfort for one whole day, since she'd proved several times now that she just wasn't capable of accepting and respecting people's decisions if it went against her. I knew that there was also no point in threatening to call the cops again, since I actually wasn't going to do it. I disliked her intensely and even loathed her, but I still thought that getting the cops involved would be a bad move for me, since it had just been a few months since I'd moved in and my neighbors were still wary of me. The toilet paper had weirded them out enough. Add to that the fact that I barely ever left my house or spoke to them. A visit from the cops would just be the cherry on top, and a bad relationship with my neighbors was the last thing I needed. So I took another approach and said that if she didn't leave me alone, then I'd have no choice but to tell her family and friends about how she was harassing me. She thought I was bluffing again and said that I wasn't going to do anything of the sort, since she knew how terrified I was of having to interact with people. She laughed and mocked me for wanting to stay away from crowds and called me a coward, which really pissed me off. So I decided to go through with my threat. I made her leave by actually physically pushing her off my lawn this time around, and she was pretty taken aback as well, but she did leave. And now I just posted all about what she's been doing these past few days and how she's been harassing me nonstop just for the venue, for everyone to see. I'm hoping that this teaches her a lesson and she stops messing with me now. Update 4. So the post was seen by almost all of Ashley's friends and family members, and since she really was an entitled brat, it pretty much was the last straw for most people. After that post, from what I know, all of her bridesmaids backed out of the wedding and said that unless she apologized to me, they weren't going to be part of her nonsense anymore. She'd already been mean and short with them, and on top of that, she'd been treating them like absolute crap, so it really wasn't surprising that they'd had enough of her and were finally walking out. Not only that, Even her parents were extremely annoyed that she'd been harassing me to let her have the wedding in my backyard for free, especially after she'd convinced her dad to pay for the wedding. Apparently, she'd intended to have her dad pay for the venue in full and pocket the amount herself to pay for a fancy honeymoon. Her fiancé had planned to take her to Italy, but she wanted a full-out Europe trip so that she could impress people. And so she was willing to even cheat her own father to get what she wanted. I was disgusted when I learned what her real reason was, and I'm actually glad that I decided to expose her online. Her cousin is the one who's been keeping me updated, and from what I gather, things are looking pretty bad for Ashley. Not only have her friends deserted her, but now even her parents are pissed at her. Her fiancé is probably blinded by her love or something, which is why he's still standing by her and defending her. But I'm guessing that he was in on her plan and wanted that Europe trip as well. Otherwise, I can't think of a single reason as to why anyone would be okay with their fiancé behaving in such a disgusting way. It's just baffling to me how people can be so greedy, since Ashley herself makes a decent living and so does her husband, since they're both employees at a decently reputable company. They just want to appear rich for their friends and strangers online, which is why they were willing to go to such lengths to avoid paying for stuff. It's really sad that Ashley couldn't let go of her false sense of superiority for one day and decided to ruin her own life by doing and saying such ridiculously stupid things. I mean, there's no way that she thought that this would all work out smoothly for her. Anyhow, I'm glad that my part here is done and I don't have to deal with this nonsense anymore. Update 5. I guess I was wrong about not having to deal with this nonsense anymore, lol. Ashley decided that she was going to play the victim card and went on to post about how I'd promised her that I'd let her have her wedding in my backyard, but it was only to mislead and ruin her day, and that I was doing all of this and making up lies about her just for attention, since she knew that I was just a miserable loser. She claimed that I was just jealous that she was getting married and I couldn't even find a boyfriend yet, which is why I decided to lie about her online and make it seem like she was the bad guy. I didn't even bother to write anything this time and merely posted screenshots of Ashley texting me about the venue and me repeatedly explaining to her that I would not be comfortable with it and she should look for other places that are actually available. I'm pretty sure that even if I hadn't posted anything, nobody would believe her either. She's acting deranged now and has gone on to say that I've edited all those screenshots and I'm just doing all of this to defame her now. I mean, I'm just tired of all this and I don't want to be a part of this anymore. But she's making it difficult for me to put this behind me. I don't even want to respond to her anymore. But she still has a few loyal cronies who are just as stupid and deluded as her and are trying to pull me down. So right now, I'm left with no other option but to sue her and file for a restraining order against her, since this is very clearly just harassment at this point. Her parents and friends have all cut her off by this point. That's what her cousin told me, and I'm guessing that she needs to paint me as the bad guy to get them all back on her side once more. So I can understand why she's doing this, and I really do pity her. But that doesn't mean I have to take this anymore. I've texted her and told her that she has a few hours to take the post down. But if she doesn't, then she'll be forcing me to get the law involved, and that will be a hassle for both of us. She hasn't taken any of it seriously, and I'm regretting the fact that I unblocked her in the first place. I've already mentally prepared myself to file for a restraining order and report her for online harassment, since this is essentially what's happening. I just hope that before I do anything, Ashley decides to take the post down and just leaves me alone, because I'm just so emotionally and mentally drained because of all the drama. I wish I'd just let her get married here when she asked, since this is a lot more stressful. Update 6. She didn't take the post down, and well, I did what I had to do. I'm guessing that the lawsuit was the final straw for her parents, and they decided to cut her out of their lives completely, and now she has nobody to fund her wedding, which is why they've had to announce that their wedding is now postponed indefinitely. Neither does she have any friends in her corner anymore, and a couple of them actually texted me to congratulate me and tell me that I did the right thing by going after her. Obviously, she's found a way to blame all of this on me as well, somehow, even though I warned her several times before doing anything at all. And it was she who decided to ignore me and do whatever she pleased anyway. So there's no way that any of this is on me, and no matter how much she badmouths me to other people, anyone with half a brain will know whose fault this really is. She can't exactly post anything about me anymore, but she still hasn't stopped running her mouth in front of other people and has been telling all our high school friends that a certain ex-friend of hers ruined her life all because I was jealous. I guess she hadn't learned her lesson yet, and I don't think she ever will, truth be told, because she's just that stupid and ignorant. Someone as self-involved and delusional as her deserves whatever is happening to her, and I don't feel bad for her at all anymore. I've told her cousin and all our other common friends that I just don't want to hear about her, or what she's up to, or even what she's saying about me anymore, since I just wanted this to be done with and get over it. I've been getting a lot of unwanted attention from her ex-bridesmaids as well as just people who hated Ashley in general because she never was the most pleasant person to be around ever. So there are quite a few people who've been trying to get more gossip out of me, but I've been quite tight-lipped about it since I don't know these people well, and I know for a fact that they're just looking for gossip. Moreover, the fact that I'm uncomfortable with strangers hasn't changed even after everything, and I don't think I want to indulge in more of this drama anymore. After this last update, I just want to get all of this off my chest and simply move on from this. I genuinely don't care about Ashley anymore, and I think it's about time that I stopped having to talk or even think about her, since it's been a couple of days. I'm hoping that soon people will forget all about it and I'll go back to normal life again. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.